Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity, and boy, do I have a special treat for you. I'm a huge fan of Andy Timmons. I've interviewed him here a couple times before, and I'll repeat the story of how I met him and became aware of him. I was living in Dallas at the time, and a good friend of mine and I were at the Dallas International Guitar Show. And it was on the last day of the show, and we're hearing this incredible music coming from one of the stages on the other side of the building, and we just kind of flowed over there because we're so mesmerized by it. And it was Andy Timmons playing this song that is one of my all-time favorite songs called Cry for You. Look it up on YouTube. It's all over the place, all sorts of versions of it that Andy plays. And I became an instant fan. And it turned out that we lived near to each other in the Dallas area, connected with him, interviewed him, and just he's a lovely guy, just a gentle heart, great family man, father, all of that, and just one of the most amazing musicians in the world. He has impressed many people, including greats like Boomerocity friend Steve Lukather of Toto, among many others. And he's recently dropped a single of an old John Lennon or Beatles tune called I'm in Love that was written in 1963. And Andy recorded it, believe it or not, at Abbey Road Studios, right where the Beatles have recorded so many of their works. And so Andy and I got together and talked about this. I had a Zoom call about it, and we talked about his recent collaboration with Peter Frampton. Wow. And a bunch of other stuff. Also, Andy, if you don't know, used to be the guitar player and music director for Olivia Newton-John. In fact, he was working for her for 15 years. So we talk a little bit about that because it was right after my last solo interview with him that she passed away a couple years ago. And more recently, you'll remember Andy from the Redcoats interview that we did. Andy is just a prolific musician, doing always working. And so I think you're going to find this interview a lot of fun to watch and listen to. Phenomenal guy. If you haven't already, pick up all of his music because each song is a treat. So without any further ado, oh, before I forget, I almost signed off. Please hit like, hit subscribe, tell your friends about it, share the interview with them, ask them to do the same thing, to like and subscribe. And so now, without any further ado, here is my more recent interview with guitar great Andy Timmons. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson. Take care.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
Well, it was going great until I knocked my camera over about a minute ago. So
Well,
now I'm
well, I got to ask you then, is that because of whatever's in your cup there? I just saw you
no,
hold
definitely not. No, I was multitasking. I was mixing a track. I was trying to finish up because we had our meeting settled, and I had my tripod with my camera attached to it, right behind me. I nudged it, and it fell over, and the output HDMI pin totally bent.
Oh,
And so then
no.
I couldn't so I'm on so that's yeah, so now I'm just on my, my laptop, so hopefully can you hear me okay? And
Oh, you're great. You sound like you got the mic in front of you there doing.
what about now? Can you is that a good audio for you?
Yeah, it's great audio. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. So
So,
I'm hearing you pretty well. I normally have headphones on,
okay.
but anyway, this show must go on, as they say, and,
Absolutely.
hey, nice to
Right?
see you again in such, without such a delay this time. We've got,
Yeah. We last time we talked is with the Redcoats interview. Man, that was fun.
right, right.
How's
Yeah.
that album doing, by the way?
Going great, absolutely. We got lots of nice reviews, some great airplay on some radio across the country, and I mean, I'd say that's a success. Who
Yeah.
knows how many dozens we're actually selling? Who knows? Yeah. But if we were in it for the money,
Yeah, there wouldn't be nearly as many amplifiers behind you, right?
Yeah,
So,
well, there you go. Yeah, this is it's just a backdrop. Those aren't real. They're just
okay.
it's my
All right. Well,
wallpaper.
neither of these, this album goes.
Hey, and you look like you're in Abbey Road back there. What the heck?
Just, I wish, man, you got to
Uh,
do it, lucky dog. So,
I'm very blessed that that whole thing happened the way it did. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Well, I want to talk about that in a moment, but it's been a couple years since we last did an interview, just you and I.
Sure.
We were talking about the album you had back then, and then
Uh,
right after that, man, you lost your good friend Olivia Newton-John. I was gonna give you an opportunity to say something about her, before we started, talking about this great single you got out.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's obviously it's a great personal loss, but obviously it's a loss for a lot of people that loved her, around the world. I'm not alone in that. I was just very fortunate that I got to work very closely with her for 15 years.
Wow, that
Uh,
long. Wow.
yeah, so we started in 1999, and I think I went up to about 2015 with her. So I mean, it's a huge loss. It's just I've learned so much from her. Just her such a sense of grace and just her work ethic, and she was just a fun, great person to be with. And that it's just, I mean, for me to have been with her for 15 years, says a lot because especially after my son was born, I wasn't going to be leaving home for any other reason unless it was something that it was going to be, enriching to me, not only obviously as it was my income, but just with people that I love to be with.
Right, right.
So yeah, it's hard to put into words. It's just a personal loss. I loved her a lot. People always kind of ask me, what was she really like? I'm just kind of better than you thought she was. She
Yeah,
was incredibly generous. She was a philanthropist, and she did quite a bit for cancer awareness. She had breast cancer in the early '90s,
yeah,
and she battled it, on and off the rest of her life. But she did
yeah.
quite a bit to make sure that she could help those that might be in the same situation she was in. And she saved my life. And I don't use that as hyperbole because I had cancer exactly 11 years ago. And I,
I
I
didn't
consider
know that.
myself, consider myself lucky to be a survivor. And it was because of her story that encouraged me to go to the doctor when I did. Because she always said that because when she first had her first bout of cancer, she said she could just kind of tell that something was wrong. Her body was telling her, and she went to one doctor. No, you're fine. Second doctor, no, we don't find anything. Third doctor, thank God you came in because we found this lump, and we need to get you in for surgery, and it saved her life. So I had a moment like that 11 years ago where was experiencing some pain and felt something. I thought, oh, okay, I better get this checked out. Whereas guys a lot of times go, I'm good, I'm
Yeah.
fine. I go in on a Monday, and Thursday I'm in surgery.
I didn't know that, Andy. Wow.
Yeah. I haven't, it's been in a few low key interviews I've mentioned it, but I do like to tell the story because, had I not gone, once the operation was through, the doctor said, yeah, thank goodness you came in when you did, because if you hadn't, it was a very aggressive form, it would be a very different situation. So
My goodness.
um anyway, so I was a fellow survivor with her, and she was very very helpful and very encouraging, obviously. But yeah, just a really sweet, wonderful, smart, funny, talented human being that used her power for good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely missed by all of us that were close to her and loved her so much.
When that first album came out, man, I had the biggest crush on her. Oh
Yeah,
my god,
yeah.
I was just smitten. Yes. It
Well,
was
for
a
sure. I
great.
remember, I remember hearing, she had several hits before that, but I remember hearing "Never Have You Never Been Mellow." All the girls in my class were into that song, and I loved it too. I just fell in love with that voice.
Yeah,
Little
yeah.
did I know that get to hear that song, many,
Up
many, many
close and personal. Yeah, very cool.
house, best seat
Y
in the house. Yeah.
Now you mentioned your son. I said I was gonna just ask you that question and get into your new
Yeah,
record, but
we're
I
good.
didn't I see something about your son playing now too and in a band?
Oh, yeah, yeah. He's 20 now, Alex,
Wow.
and
Golly.
so he started when he was about 16. And, yeah, I mean, he obviously been in a very guitar-centric household, but just never really caught his fancy. And one day I started hearing, you know, Pantera and Slipknot, emanating from his bedroom. I thought, that's new, that's different. So he had a close buddy that was getting into heavy rock, and they quickly got into Megadeth and Metallica. He just said, "Dad, I think I want to play guitar." I said, "Well, I think I can help you." We got him set up with a little rig, and he caught fire, man. And I of course would help him when he asked for help, or I would try to show him things.
Right,
But he kind of earned it on his own. He was much like I was when I was at his age, where I was just learning from my records, and of course now with the internet, which we didn't have back then. But he's all
right.
the tutorials, and so within the year, man, he was a James Hetfield Jr. Man, had a great right hand. just killing. But then he got into heavier and heavier stuff. So he's solidly into death metal. And so his band is called Disdain, Distain.
Oh.
And they made an EP with Sterling Winfield, who was my buddy that worked with Pantera and Dimebag all those years. So
Mhm.
he produced their EP, and they're working on a new record right now. So how quickly, they caught on and got going, and
Well,
so
hey,
I was
when that
working
new
hard. I'm
album
really proud of them.
when that
Yeah.
new album comes out, man, give me a heads up. I'd love to interview him. That would be fun.
I would love to hook you guys up. That'd be great.
That would be.
For sure.
So man, tell me the story behind this single, man. I love it. I
Well,
heard it and then saw the
uh,
video, of course, and it's like, wow, we got to talk.
thank you,
So,
man. Well, there's a lot to tell. I'll try to make a Reader's Digest version. The recording session came to be because I ran into a good friend of mine, this guy Craig Hopkins, who's he's well known in the Stevie Ray Vaughan world. But he wrote one of the greatest compendiums of Stevie's life called Day After Day, Night After Night.
mm,
And he was a collector and had a Stevie Ray Vaughan museum and put out this book. But he was also a big Beatles fan, so I guess we'd run into each other at different Beatle events, and Ringo Starr would be in town, and McCartney, and we'd see each other all the time.
mhm.
And Ringo was playing up at the casino in Oklahoma late last year, and he said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing one last, trip to London and Liverpool, sightseeing, doing a Beatles pilgrimage. Would you want to go?" And as many times as I've been to the UK, I'd never done any specific sightseeing. I'd been to Abbey Road once as a tourist. I got to attend a lecture that Brian Kehew did. But I hadn't gone to all the sites, the childhood homes, and I'd never been to Liverpool. And
Wow.
so immediately the idea, so I thought about it for a second and said yes. And he and I had also talked about at one point, Abbey Road, like any other studio in the world, is a studio for hire. So you can book time there. It's certainly not cheap, and it's not the easiest thing to go jump through the hoops to get booked there. But Craig is nothing if not tenacious. And not only did he curate the most incredible 10 days of sightseeing and meetings with all kinds of different people within the Beatles associated with the Beatles, but we booked a day at Abbey Road. Now, Craig, and I mean, we also went along with another buddy of mine named Dennis Poggenberg, somebody I'd met over Zoom, and streaming concerts during the pandemic. Got
Mhm.
to be really close friends and also equally, fanatical about the Beatles, and we put this trip together. But as soon as it came into my mind, okay, I've got 10 hours at Abbey Road, what are we gonna do? Now, Craig plays the piano and guitar and sings a bit, so he had a handful of songs he wanted to record. He wanted to take the first hour of the session, do some recording just himself. And then the rest of the day was kind of up to me to figure out how to spend the time. Um, so see, I wanted to record a couple of my solo pieces, these kind of solo guitar ballads that I've written over the past few years. And I had one called Truth that I was going to record, which I did that day. But I also thought, well, if I did something Beatles related, there's a John Lennon composition from 1963 called I'm in Love. That was one of the songs that Lennon-McCartney gave to other artists. And this particular song was given to a band called The Foremost. A
Mhm.
lot of their songs would go to other Brian Epstein managed groups, right? So, um, Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas, recorded several Lennon-McCartney songs. Cilla Black recorded different songs. And so this particular song, The Foremost got a hold of, and I heard that version of that song because obviously anything Lennon-McCartney, Beatle related, even if other people recorded it, you wanted to seek it out and check it out. And this song never really struck me until maybe sometime in the 2000s, I heard John Lennon's original demo, which was
Mhm.
just him sitting at a piano in 1963, singing and playing the song. And I went, oh my, I fell in love with it. It was like, this is a great, great song. I really felt like the Beatles should have recorded it. It was that good. And so that's the song that popped into mind. I thought, well, if I ever get a chance, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that track. So in preparation leading up to the recording sessions, the recording engineer Chris Bolster, who was given the task of being our session engineer that day, asked me what kind of sounds I was going for. I said, well, for this one specific track, think Beatles 1964. Since that's the kind of the sound I imagine me trying to get into that headspace of what they would have done with this song had they recorded it. And so the beauty of that is not only are you in that same room where they would have recorded, they have all the original mics that would have been used. So those are the
Mm,
microphones they brought out. So
wow.
the floor was just littered with all these wonderful old power supplies that it took to power up these old microphones. And so, and my friend Daniel Steinhardt from the pedal show was along that day to bring me the gear that I needed. So he has a couple of my Mesa Boogie amps, but also a 61 Vox AC30, and that's the amp that you hear on the I'm in Love track. I brought my own 1965 Stratocaster, and so that's kind of the guitar sound. I was kind of going for the Nowhere Man, really chimey,
Yeah.
bright, trebly sound, even though that's more 65, but early Beatles-ish. And they had a lovely old set of Ludwigs there for me to play drums on and a bass rig. Though I ended up doing the bass. I ran out of time. I did the bass back here in Texas. So that was it. I just tried to, play and sing as authentically as I could in a manner that is Beatle-esque, not trying to imitate them identically, but my own take on it.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I was thrilled with, obviously just being in that room, is pretty awe-inspiring because it looks exactly like it did. And you see in the pictures in the video, it looks like you're in the exact room that the Beatles, recorded 90% of their
Wow.
recorded output. But but once you're kind of over the awestruck vibe, it's like, okay, I got 10 hours. Let's get to work.
Yeah.
And that's how I approached the day. So for me, it wasn't unlike how I would conduct a normal session. I just happened to be in that room with those microphones. And of course, there would be various times during the session, just a big smile would magically appear on my face. Because I would be very aware of where I was, and everything just sounded right, sounded good. But someone asked me if I was intimidated, and I got to say, it never was. It just kind of felt like home in a way.
Wow.
I said to somebody the other day, it's kinda like I walked into a movie that I've been watching my whole life, and then I was in the middle of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, there was a magic there. It was palpable. When I played the drums, the room sounded amazing, and there was another solo piece, like I mentioned, that I recorded called "Truth."
Right.
Just a simple electric guitar, with my stereo echo, and if you watch the video of that, it's my friend Dennis just holding an iPhone, that's the video. But I'm not wearing headphones, which is very unusual. Usually when you're recording, you're gonna have headphones on. But the sound was so perfect in the room, I didn't want to interrupt it with having to get a sound in the headphones. Just having faith that the engineer was gonna capture it. And I will say, of all the pieces that I've recorded in that style, it's the best tone I ever got for that kind of solo piece,
Cool.
just because not only was the 2 amplifiers captured very well with the old U67 Neumann mics, they also had some mics up in the room to capture a bit of that extra magic. So, yeah, if you give a chance, watch that one too, because that's a really nice sound and a nice piece of music. Yeah.
But you said something a while ago that I just chuckled inside myself. You said a simple guitar tune. Andy Timmons doesn't do simple guitar anything. So
Okay, well, I I accept your assessment, and that I say simple in that to the listener, I don't think it would sound complicated, but of course, I do know that those very simple songs and the level of dynamic and detail that I imbue in them, it's rare to find somebody that can cover it exactly like that.
right.
I don't say that boastful, but it's a lifetime of getting to that place. And
Yeah. Yeah.
even going back 30 years to Electric Gypsy, it's hard to think that was 30 years ago.
I know.
So I always thought of that, oh, that's such a simple Hendrixy thing until the advent of YouTube, and I'm very flattering that a lot of people love that song and they love to cover it. But boy, it's hard to find anybody that really kind of grasps all the detail. It's because it's just it's a lifetime of pursuing that level of articulation and that level of communication. So I appreciate your comment, and yeah, so maybe simple in some ways, but
Yeah, that's like the Emerald saying, "I'll just put you together a snack or something," so
yeah, well, yeah, you are, yeah.
well
Uh,
to
yeah,
play there, I mean, just think about it. There's a handful of studios in the world that are iconic like that.
yeah,
There's Abbey Road, there's Electric Lady, there's
Yeah.
there's Studio what is it, Studio B in Nashville,
Yeah. Yeah.
Fame, Muscle Shoals, all that,
Yeah.
and to
You
be
got
able to do
Stack against Stack,
yeah,
Sun.
stacks. So
Yeah.
for you to be able to do that and to get the sound, I mean, just bang
Yeah.
on. That thing sounds like it came straight out of '63, in my opinion.
Well, thank
And
you. So, part of that obviously is the source,
right.
those instruments in that room, me playing the way I play. And then Casey DiOrio, longtime friend of mine that we haven't collaborated that much, has a great studio here in Dallas called Valve Studios.
Mhm.
So he helped me, finish what needed to be finished, being that I needed to record bass. I recorded the Gibson J160E um, at his studio. And also, I don't know if you know this, but Matt Bissonette is the one singing all the background vocals.
I
So
didn't know
my
that.
Redcoats part, Matt
Yeah,
Bissonette.
good
So
old Matt.
I could have sang the backgrounds, but he's got such a vocal sound and a harmonizing ability. I thought he's the perfect guy. So I sent him the track. The next day, I get 12 vocal tracks back of this amazing, harmony team. I was like, this is fantastic. So yeah, but kudos to Matt for kind of knowing what I was going for without me having to tell him.
When I found out you 2 knew each other, because I just met him
Yeah.
earlier this year before the
Okay.
Reddcoats thing came out,
Oh
and
well.
we became fast friends just like that. We met through a mutual friend, and, of course, him playing with Elton was
Yeah.
huge to me. I was a big Elton
Oh,
John fan, and
absolutely.
to find out that you 2 knew each other, I was like, "Well, of course, you 2 are 2 peas in a pod, same kinda kindred spirits, very kind
Yeah.
people, and easy to get
Uh,
along with," and so,
uh,
when I heard that, I thought, "Man, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be
uh,
really fun," so, that was cool, very cool, but I didn't realize he was in the background on that too, so
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
now you
I've got
there
nice
was
friends. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you to I read in the press release, I was very touched by it, because you mentioned or the press release mentions the
Yeah.
influence of your brother on your musical taste and such,
Oh,
and
all 3 of my older brothers.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was, tell me a little bit about that, and, but
Well,
pay
I
homage.
have that's the thing that they formed my musical taste, So I was born in '63, the year that John wrote the song, but my oldest brother, we were all 4 years apart. I was the youngest, so I had a brother 4, 8, and 12 years, my elder. So my brother Mark, who was 12 in 1963, bought all these singles in real time and LPs, and so not only Beatles, but Dave Clark 5 and Kinks and Herman's,
Wow. Yeah.
Animals, all British invasion, but the Beatles were just, king in our household as they were in just about every household, it seems. But and I still have all those original 45s, the original I Want to Hold Your Hand and Please Please Me and Twist and Shout, Love Me Do, and Do You Want to Know a Secret, Thank You Girl. And they're treasures to me, and they're worn to just about nothing because not only did they play them a lot, I played them way more than, any should have. But so yeah, but not only at that point in my life, but even throughout my life, they continue to be very aligned with my musical taste, but both so much of it was formed by what they were listening to. Because from the '60s into the '70s, and my brother Mark got into Jeff Beck. Everything Jeff Beck was involved in, post Yardbirds, all the Jeff Beck group and all that stuff. And my brother John, with his taste that got into Peter Frampton, and there's that story too. Where I ended up
Mhm.
working with Peter recently. So, and to this day, we can still get on the phone and we're just talking about, well, what are you listening to? What are you
Yeah.
into? So we know that if one of us is into something, the others are likely going to also resonate with that. So they're a major part of my life.
Now one of them had a record store once upon a time, right?
Yeah, that's Jeff. That's John. He was 8 years my senior. So
Mhm.
Louisville, Kentucky, very famous record store called Ear Ecstasy,
Yeah.
and it survived for many years, but finally fell prey to the swing of the industry, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was always my favorite record store, and definitely a bit of bias, but I've also traveled a lot of places around the globe, and I'm
Yeah.
always seeing record stores, and it was truly one of the best in the world. It's always marveled at what I could find there that I couldn't find anywhere else. There was this one when I was a early '80s, mid '80s. I was a big Steve Lukather fanatic, and I was
Yeah.
buying everything that I could find with his name on it. My biggest influence. And there was this one record mentioned in a Guitar World magazine interview in 1983. He talked about, yeah, there's this live record I did, the Baked Potato, with Greg Matheson and Jeff Vaquero and Abe Laboriel. called Live at the Super Spot or something like that. I looked for that record for years. When I finally got to Japan with Danger Danger in 1990, I thought, all right, I'm going to find, I know it was a Japanese only thing, so I'm going to find that record. I went to record stores all over Shinjuku and Tokyo, never found it. About 3 years later on the Ear Ecstasy, you know where this is headed, and there it was in my brother John's store. So he just always had a knack for, he just had the coolest stuff and the best taste, and they actually used to, you know, once they got into a larger location, they had everybody from the Foo Fighters to Tenacious D to all these bands would play there because it was known to be that cool of a spot, you know?
Oh,
So
cool.
sadly, once the shop, you know, met its demise, John is now a DJ on a great, public station in Louisville called WFPK. And so I get to listen to my brother, you know, I can tune it on in the office.
Right, right.
WPK.org. He's on from 9 to noon, East Coast time. And, it's like hanging out with my, you know, hanging out with my brother because that's who it is. And he's playing, you know, all the good stuff, you know, so
How fun. But,
yeah.
all of this is just I mean, it's so I hear it a lot among us baby boomers. You're right on the tail end of that. I'm 4 years older than you, but,
Okay.
I got your story is very similar to mine. I have my mom's 45s from when she was an Elvis fan. She was
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so she was not quite a baby's boomer, but, she
Yeah.
had me young and all that, so when she passed, I got all of her Elvis records
Oh, right
and
on.
all of that, so that influenced my taste, just like your brothers influenced
Yeah.
yours, and
Oh,
then my cousins influenced me, corrupted me with the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and
there you
all
go.
that, so
Yeah,
but,
good for yeah.
isn't it fun, though? I mean, I think, our generation
Yeah.
I shudder to think of how the future generations are because we're either gonna influence our kids or they're gonna just be getting dumped on through whatever the internet feeds them, And
Yeah, no, it is that's I mean, so much of our, you know, taste come from the household and what we're exposed to, but sometimes not. Like I say, Alex was just had a buddy that was into a certain thing, and
Mhm.
they went hardcore into some like, oh, the eight was like 80s metal. Like, what modern kid is going back to get into 80s metal? But you know, it's and so he was turning me on to because I hadn't really paid attention to Megadeth, but at a certain period, they had a guitar player named Marty Friedman, who I knew
Mhm.
from the shrapnel years of shredding, and he did a famous record with Jason Becker called Cacophony. So I knew this was a amazing guitar player, but I just wasn't on my radar at that point in my life. But then when Alex got into it, I was like, oh my, this is incredible. This guy's amazing. And so you know, there's a lot of great music out there waiting for all of us. It's just a matter of you know if we're exposed to it and or if we're ready for
Yeah,
it. You know?
true, true.
That's to me. I mean, I'm continually going back and finding things that I like. I didn't get into Django Reinhardt till, but you know, 6 or 7 years ago, because a good buddy of mine, my friend Nick Knurk, this great guitar player here in McKinney, went down the gypsy path. I went, I'll go with you, you know, and was just blown away. You know, I was aware of Django as studying jazz in my teens and forward, but it wasn't electric, so it didn't appeal to me at that time. But boy, you know, now that I've matured in whatever ways I have, it connects on a much deeper level, and just everybody still marvels at what that man
Ha
accomplished.
ha has
Well,
that
with
affec
limited digital, you know, abilities. He had his hand was badly burned in a fire when he was 19, and so he had really only used the 2 fingers, and he could kinda use these 2 to play some chordal things, but it's insane. So I love that all this music is always waiting for us whenever we're ready for it. Chopin was another path I went deep down, which has inspired all these solo pieces that I'm doing.
Right.
There's going to be an entire record of that that I'll eventually release, but I've been releasing them as singles sporadically every few months.
Mhm.
Uh, so that will be something I'll release next year. It's called The Bittersweets, The Outlier Nocturnes. It is completely Chopin influence. So and here we are talking about a Beatles song, and that continues to be my foundation. The thread through everything, no matter what, you know, rabbit hole I go down in any direction, I always come back there because that's, you know, great. It's just the foundation for me.
What with the Django thing, did it affect your guitar buying at all as far as what you
Well, of
buy?
course, I had to get a proper Django style guitar.
Well, of
I thought
course.
there was a nice guitar a company called Altamira that made a nice kind of mid-level, you know, entry for me, just something that I can get the sound and find out about the techniques and how to play like that. There, strangely and very interestingly, there Ibanez collaborated with the guitar builder McAfee that built those gypsy guitars for Django back in the 30s and 40s. And there was some guitars made in the 70s that were signed by McAfee on the inside, but it was, made by Ibanez that he collaborated with. So
Oh, they go.
a Japanese fan of mine found one in Japan, and I traded him one of my guitars for it. So I have a couple of really good MC guitars. Well, what I quickly learned was that the technique, even though it's right hand with a pick and like it's guitar, it's so different than what I naturally do. And I was trying to force myself to do something that wasn't natural. So
Mhm.
after a while, I had to step back and go, I love this style. I love people that do it well, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do it at a high enough level for me to further go down this path.
Mm.
But that said, you can't help, and I've noticed it in some of my writing that you're gonna be influenced by what you're hearing. It's gonna get into you on some level. So by having gone down that path and studied it, it definitely, enriched me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And that's how every player becomes who they are. It's not because they try to copy this one guy. If they really end up having their own voice, it's because they took in so much different things and it just kind of comes out as them.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
you recently collaborated with Peter Frampton, one of my I mean, he was
Yeah.
bomb when I was in high school. In fact, my
Yeah.
Frampton story is when Star Is Born that had Barbara Streisand in it. That outdoor
Right.
concert scene was filmed at ASU Sun Devil Stadium. I went to high school in
Oh,
Phoenix,
wow. Okay,
and
yeah.
when they were filming that, all my friends, it seemed like all my friends, got to go to the concert that they had in Sun Devil Stadium.
Yeah.
And in order to fill it out, I mean, no offense to Barbara, but that she wasn't gonna fill up
She's not feeling stadiums, yeah.
correct. And but in order to do it, they had Santana, Montrose, uh,
Wow.
several others, and Peter Frampton. And people were complaining about the sound, I kid you not, 10 miles away. So,
Wow.
people were calling in about it. But so huge, huge, huge Frampton fan. He's been on my bucket list of who I want to interview. Tell me
Yeah.
about your collaboration with him and how that
Well,
came about.
it was, about exactly a year ago that I proposed the idea to him, but I'd met Peter, several times over the years, with various connections, just saying hello backstage or something.
Mhm.
But, the drummer that was with me, with
Oat?
Olivia Newton-John, Dan Wojciechowski,
Yeah,
ended up playing with Peter,
right.
whatever it was back in it's many years ago now. Chronology is tough for me. So, that also was another portal of, going I loved going to see my buddy Dan and seeing Peter, and occasionally I would visit backstage. So fast forward to, well, I should say this. So Peter and the band played here in Dallas 2019, right before the pandemic. And before he was starting to show signs of his myositis. They played it's a newer venue here in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Irving, called the Toyota Music Complex.
Mm,
Anyway, it was a great show. I was so inspired, and I got to visit with Peter a bit that night. And I went home and wrote a piece of music, very much inspired. Again, he's in my DNA also, because again, my brother John was buying everything from Humble Pie forward, all of
right,
Frampton's
right,
Camel, and of course, It Comes Alive. But before that, the Frampton album, that was a big
right.
one for us too. Um, so having seen him, I just, it was in my mind and my soul, and I wrote this piece of music, and I just demoed it on my computer and didn't think much of it after that. Then I was asked, maybe a year or so later, to do a recording workshop at the sprawling Sweetwater complex up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They're
Mhm.
the big music retailer, but they have recording studios and concert halls, and it's an amazing place. So I've been up there to do different workshops, and they have a recording studio. They asked me to come to conduct a recording workshop. The benefit for the artist is, like, you get to record a couple of tracks and you can use them for however you want. And then, but you allow people to observe and to see how you work. Great. And so I brought a couple of songs, and I didn't think my band was going to record. One of them was what I called the song "The Boy from Beckenham," which is where Peter was born and where he grew up. I recorded the song that day. It turned out really nice. I didn't record the solo that day. I had this finished piece of music, didn't record the solo. And then it sat again, right? Well, last year, so we're on the anniversary. My birthday's in 2 days, July 26th. And we couldn't figure out what
Happy birthday, by the way. So
thank you very much. So sometimes, well, we'll go to a nice locale or whatever. We couldn't think of anywhere we wanted to go. So she just said, "Well, just find someone who's doing a concert." Now Peter Frampton was playing Huntington, Long Island on
Wow.
my birthday. I thought, that's it. We love going to New York 'cause I used to live up there. We got lots of friends. Love being in Manhattan. And so book the trip. We go, we see Peter that night. Of course, in the back of my mind, through all this, I'm going, wouldn't it be great if, you know? But I just, and especially then at that point when, the struggles that he has with this,
Right.
this muscular disease,
Mhm.
I felt even more shy and sheepish about putting something on his plate, asking him to do something for me, uh, but the moment was right when we were visiting after the show, and I just asked him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I'd love to." Wow, okay. Send me the track. I sent him the track. He loved it. He thought this is great. I'd written the chord changes very much like some of my favorite pieces of Frampton music. It was very much designed with him in mind.
Right.
And so then, I sent him the track, and I guess some time had gone by. It could have been a month or two, but I hadn't heard anything. And he finally reaches out to me, and says, "Andy, don't worry, I'm still working on it. Just give me a little bit more time." I said, "Oh, Peter, I don't want this to be I don't want this to be any kind of burden. I don't want it to be a hassle for you." He goes, "Oh, no, 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 no. This is exactly what I need. I love this." And I immediately knew what he meant, because if you're a lifelong musician, but you're battling a disease that may take your ability away to play, like, do you want to play one day? So he was literally, working on it fairly regularly. And so he finally sends me the track, and I'm overwhelmed. I just couldn't believe how great it was. And it kept with more listens. And then when the key was when I learned how to play it, when I had to kind of learn what he did. So if I perform this song live, I replicate the solo he recorded.
Ah,
And so there, when you study, because, but he's a Django guy. So there's always things that set his playing apart from every other 70s British rocker. There was a melodicism that is innately him, the way he writes, the way he conceives vocal melodies, guitar melodies. There's nobody that does it like him. But there's also a bit of jazz, there's a bit of swing, and there's a certain amount of voice leading that's very necessary, meaning, what note goes where over the chord changes.
right.
Because, the chords that I wrote for him to play on, it's not like pick a key and shred. You have to be very, very, very intentional with where you're going, and it
Mhm.
has to make sense, and each note is related to what comes before and after it. And what he achieved and what he did was just textbook why he's so great. The way he hears things, the way
Yeah.
he conceives things. And for him to do that for my track, really I call it our track because it was really for him to start with, right? Was incredibly gratifying, and just blown away, and just honored that he agreed to do it and did it on such a high level. So
Well, it's a testimony to your talent and your contributions to other people. I mean, I
well, thank
happen to know Steve Lukather thinks very highly of you as well, so
I just had the best text, one of the best texts of my life. So we've been in contact recently. I'd gone to see him with Ringo in Austin a couple months ago.
mhm.
And in the conversation, he was aware that I had a couple of pedals that I'd helped design with the Keeley company, the Halo Dual Echo and the Mark III driver. So, man, I want to check those out. I said, "Oh, I'll send them to you. Oh, man, you do that? Yeah, okay." So I sent him the pedals. And now he's on tour with Toto in Europe, and he sends me a picture of his pedal board. Says, "Man, they are welded to my pedal board. They're not going anywhere. These are the best sounding pedals ever." And I'm like, "This is crazy." As I've already said, he's just, the biggest of my influences, well, of guys that I really got the most from.
Yeah.
He shaped me in a lot of ways. And so the fact that, we're buds now, and anybody that meets him, he's the kindest, hardest,
He is, he is.
really, really sweet person.
He
Uh,
holds the record. He holds the record of the person I've interviewed the most.
Wow, holy
7
crap,
times, 7
oh,
times.
that's amazing, man. Well, you picked a good one, man, because 'cause he's got stories and he's fun to hang out with.
Yeah, you don't ever know what's gonna plop out of his
No,
mouth,
well,
so
that's for sure, yeah, disclaimer before you start the
that's
video there.
right. If you're
Anything,
easily offended, don't listen.
that's why we love the guy, because it's unfiltered. It's just like,
That's right. Well,
you
I think I told you this story before, but, the first time I had interviewed, I was already living here in Tennessee,
Mm,
and, I'd interviewed him, and he said, "Hey, man, I'm gonna be coming by your way and, with Ringo. You gotta come
Well,
to the show." And it was over in Asheville, South Carolina, and I thought,
yeah,
"Yeah, he's blowing smoke." Well, he was
yeah,
for real, but I
yeah.
get there, my cousin and I get there, and I go to will call, and there's no tickets.
Oh,
And I was like,
no.
"Okay." Well, I had his phone number, so I text him. My
Yeah.
cousin's not believing me. He thinks, "Oh, you
Yeah,
don't
right,
have
right,
his
yeah.
number." So I text him, say, "Hey, man," and he writes back. He goes, "Oh, man, give me 5 minutes." 5 minutes, like, he goes, "You're covered. Go to the will call window." And we
No,
walk up, and there we are, and then, he's wearing these red leather shoes that he got in Italy somewhere, and he's telling us the story. He's got his little
yeah,
acoustic guitar with him, and pretty soon Todd Rundgren walks up, and I'm like, and
yeah.
and then finally Luke goes, "Well, you guys wanna go meet the boss?" And I'm
Oh
like,
my god.
"Um, nah, I don't want to," yeah, of
Like,
course I do,
yeah, right what you
No,
said,
we
yeah.
go walking back, and we go in this back room,
Mm.
and I don't know if you know Rob Shanahan. He's Ringo's
Oh, huge.
photographer. Yeah,
Yeah,
good
right.
guy. And
Yeah,
he warned me. He goes, "Just whatever you do, just stay out of his way." I said, "Okay."
yeah,
He goes, "Don't
yeah,
bring anything for him to sign, nothing." So I just
for
stayed
sure.
back, and
Yeah,
he and Luke walk in, and there's
yeah.
some kid there, and it was the coolest thing to watch. This kid just wanted to meet Ringo, and so they got the pictures together with the peace sign and all that kind of stuff. And Ringo looks at me like, "And who are you?" That kind of look.
Yeah.
And we just nodded, and that was my Ringo experience there.
Uh,
So, but anyway,
that's pretty amazing 'cause yeah, Luke won't do that for me. I mean, because again, it's a different level, but it's kinda similar to my years with Olivia. You were always kind of protecting the boss. You
yes,
don't want to have because I'd have plenty of friends, "Man, hey, could I meet? Could I?" And sometimes it was the right situation, but you don't wanna be the person adding more to their
well, and you
there's
never
nobody like
know how people are going to react.
well, that's the thing, and I had plenty of times before I had met Ringo where I had tried either by, I know people in the band or the crew, but they're in the same position because it's just that, people have been wanting to get at the Beatles since they were in their early 20s, like, and it hasn't let up.
Yeah,
They've been that famous for so long, and I'm very empathetic to that. There was one time, where I was in proximity to Ringo, but I just knew it wasn't the time.
yeah.
And I'm glad I let that moment pass. And then years later, I've had, a handful of different times now, and it was the right situation. We've had amazing exchanges. And so, yeah, he's just every bit of the Liverpudlian awesome
Yeah,
guy that you hope he would be. But you also understand that, man, he's been pestered his entire life, and I'm not going to add to that. If it's
yeah,
cool, it's cool. You just over the years, and you're the same way. Your antenna can be very strong. You're like, read the room.
that's
If
right.
it's cool, don't wanna
Yeah,
bug any
if you can look at them from 15
yeah.
feet away, that's good enough for me. So
I had that visual exchange with, Dick Clark,
really,
and yeah, so I was just, of course, living in Dallas, I was at DFW catching a flight somewhere, was probably I don't know, late '80s, maybe mid-90s, and I see we're in the Hudson News or one of the magazine stands, getting bottles of water, and whatnot. I look at him, he looks at me, and he goes, "Yep." I'm Dick Clark, and I hope yeah, I can just tell, it's like, I'm not gonna bug him,
yeah,
it's
that's right.
like because how God, that face too, I mean, everybody,
Yep,
on the planet would know this, so
yeah.
yeah,
Hey,
you just know.
that is so cool. Well, I know you got to run, but one
Yeah.
final question: what's on your radar now? From what's happening for you the rest of the year?
Well, the rest of the year, multiple projects I'm working on, so the follow-up to Electric Truth is 60% done, we've got 6 tracks already
Right.
mixed. And, so I have 5 more songs to complete here in the studio. Then the engineer that mixed the last record, Alan Hurst, lives in Nashville now, so he's remotely mixing there. The solo pieces record, I'm continuing to assemble tracks for that. More ATB, Andy Timmons band stuff coming.
All
A
right.
little bit of travel, here and there. We got a couple of camps coming up that are very notable. So there's the Andy Wood Woodshed that happens in September. Go to andytimmons.com to check the actual dates. But,
Yeah,
the
but
headline
where is that gonna? Because Andy lives here in Knoxville. Andy.
yeah, it's gonna be in Crossville,
Okay. Well, I might drop over and say hi to you when.
halfway in between. So I've done 4 or 5 of these camps with him. Joe Bonamassa, headline one year, Robin Ford one year, Eric Johnson one year. This year it's Steve Morse.
All
And
right.
Was Andy will be there. I'll be there. Let's see who else is going to be. I think Tom Quayle's going to be there. I think Ariel Posen, wonderful musician, is going to be there. Then I have another one coming up January 3rd to the 6th. Now, this is crazy, but George Benson is doing one of these camps
Oh,
happening in Phoenix.
oh
So if
man, that's where I want to go, man. That's
listen to
where
this, listen to this lineup, Randy. So January 3rd to the 6th, it's called George Benson, Breezing with the Stars. George, Steve Lukather, let's see who else? Stanley Jordan,
oh,
John Scofield, Lee Rittenauer, Tommy Emmanuel. I know Patty Austin's going to be there.
oh my gosh.
Greg Fillinganes is going to be the music director. Rick Beato is going to be there as an MC. Corey Wong, another up and younger guy. Like I guess I'm kind of a younger guy compared to the table that I'm sitting at here. I'm just blown away that I've been invited to go too. But I would have been paying to go to this camp anyway. So
Oh my gosh.
that's January 3rd to the 6th. And again, all these links are on my website.
I'll check it out.
The
I'd love to go there just to be a fly on the wall and watch
Well,
what.
and anybody can do that. So it's for players, but it's also for fans. The guitar players will learn a lot because there's lots of playing. There's classes. There's a lot of interviews. Like I think George will be interviewed by. I think Tommy Emmanuel is going to be interviewing him. In front of the crowd several times, and so to be able to be around these amazing musicians is truly an opportunity and an experience. And like I said, there's players of all levels. There's some very, accomplished virtuoso style players, and there's beginners, but everybody gets something from it. And even if you're just a fan, you can still
Yeah,
attend. So
yeah.
highly recommend it to anybody.
Boy, and Phoenix is home to me, man. So
And we've had this conversation. I was
yeah,
born in Scottsdale,
yeah, yeah.
so we may have crossed paths at one point or another. Who knows?
Very, very possible. Very
Gotcha.
possible. Danny Zalisco there.
Who is it?
Danny Zalisco. He had his concert promotion company there. Now
I
he,
did. I didn't know.
I,
It. No,
he
well,
might have, he might
I
have
moved.
sold by then. I don't know.
Yeah, I moved away when I was 5 in 1968. So.
Oh, okay. Well, this was after.
Or few, but fun. But then, of course, going back to visit and play
Yeah,
many times.
yeah. You gonna be out this way anytime soon?
Well, that's just it. I'll be at the Andy Woods guitar camp in
Right.
Pottsville. So I think that's early September. You'll have to check the calendar.
I'll look it up, and if I can do it, man, I'll
Yeah,
swing over and say hi to you, man. It'd be good to see
sounds
you in
great.
person again.
That'd be
So,
great, man. Absolutely.
Andy, as you already know, I don't have to say it, but my door is always open to you, man. Whatever you got coming out, let's get together and do one of these, and
Sure. Love
let
to.
I'll do my part to let the world know about it. So,
Appreciate it. Tell a few million of your best friends.
yeah,
And
my closest and
thanks
dearest.
everybody. And thanks everybody for watching. If you got this far, bless you.
Well, hey, my friend, we'll talk soon. Stay safe.
Thanks, man.
All right,
Appreciate you,
take
man.
care. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.